Hello and welcome to Writers and Books Visiting Author Series. My name is Dan Hurd. I'm the Director of Adult Programs. Writers and Books is a nonprofit literary arts center in Rochester, New York. We offer readings, workshops, a bookstore, and literary programming for people of all ages and backgrounds. You can find more information on our website, wab.org. Please say hello in the chat and let us know you're there. Feel free to submit questions through the chat or Q&A function. Books are available through our bookstore, Ampersand Books. I'll put the link in the chat. Writers and Books would like to call attention to the complex and troubled history of the lands on which we live and work. We are hosting this event from the unceded ancestral homelands of the Onondaga, or the people of the Great Hill. In English, they are known as the Seneca people, or the Keeper of the Western Door. We're so happy to have Gabrielle Sejal with us tonight. First, we'll hear her read, then she'll be in conversation with Sejal Shaw. Sejal Shaw is the author of the award-winning essay collection, This Is One Way to Dance. Her stories and essays have appeared in The Guardian, Brevity, Conjunctions, Guernica, Kenyon Review, Literary Hub, Long Reads, and The Rumpus. Her second book, How to Make Your Mother Cry, will be available next year. She lives in Rochester, New York. Emerging from the intersection of pandemic and uprising, the Déjà Vu activates forms both new and ancestral, drawing movement, speech, and lyric essay into performance memoir. As Sejal considers the Haitian tourist paintings, dance rituals, race at the movies, Black feminist legacies, and more, she reflects on her personal losses and desires, speculates on Black time, and dreams into an expansive Black life. With intimacy, humor, and verve, the Déjà Vu blurs boundaries between memory, grief, and love, then, now, and the future. Gabrielle Sejal is a Black performance artist, poet, and writer originally from Detroit, Michigan. Her performance memoirs include Swallow the Fish, Experiments in Joy, Ghost Gestures, The Déjà Vu, and In and Out of Place. Her writing has appeared in Black in the Middle, Teaching Black, New Daughters of Africa, Kitchen Table Translation, and Experiments in Joy, a workbook. A 2019 Rema Hort Mann Los Angeles emerging artist, she teaches at the California Institute of the Arts. The aim of her work is to open up space. Gabrielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm here on Tongva land, and actually specifically I'm in Tongva region, but I'm specifically on the land of the Tatavian people here, where my institution, the California Institute of the Arts, is sort of based or landed on this unceded territory. And I was telling Dan and Sejal that I'm sort of like wedged behind a file cabinet just to try to get the best light in my office here in the Pacific time zone. So I'm really thrilled to be here and to see these wonderful people already populating the chat. Feel free as I read to just drop in. If there are words or lines or phrases or things that come up, feel free. Since I can't see you, that's my one way of knowing that you're here. So, all right, I think I'm gonna get myself started here. I'm the type that is going to use a timer because I love to read so much. I don't want to end up having us here until midnight. But I'll start. This is my book, baby, The Déjà Vu, Black Dreams and Black Time. And you might be wondering, what is the Déjà Vu? And I'm about to tell you. The Déjà Vu, 1. The Déjà Vu is not a strip club in Ypsilanti, 2. This is to say, when you tell your sister Yolene that the name of your next book is The Déjà Vu, and she laughs and says, Herman says, isn't the Déjà Vu a strip club in Ypsilanti? Herman is her husband, and we won't get into how he and his brothers might know about this club. You just laugh and say back 3. That maybe it is 3. That maybe it is 3. That maybe it is 4. Revealing, glistening bodies. 5, Like in The Magicians, when Alice asked the Black man in jail with the salt and pepper beard if he was Santa Claus. And he answered, well, I have got problems with that name, but I'm not that. 5. The déjà vu is like that. The you doubling back as me. 6. Merry Christmas. 7. Welcome to flashback season. Or should I say, welcome back to the feeling of been here, or maybe been that before. 4. Embodying, gestures, repeating. 8. Double consciousness, double negatives, double dreams, double time. 9. The Black feminist performance artist in performance still. 10. Mining, experiential echoes. There's something in here about flashbacks. I feel like, just so that I know you're there, or kind of that feeling of been here, or maybe been that before. Just in the chat right now, can you just drop in what's a place where you've been or a feeling that you've had before? Just drop that into the chat for me. We can weave that in here. Don't overthink it. Just drop it in. What is the déjà vu? 1. The déjà vu comes from the phrase déjà vu, which in French means already seen. My name, Gabrielle Civil, also comes from the French by way of Haiti, Alabama, and the Kingdom of Detroit. This coincidence of common heritage is a hallmark of the déjà vu. This recalls previous apparitions. 2. Once at an airport, some strangers were waiting for Gabrielle Civil. Is that her? That blonde lifting a logo bag from the claim, is that her? That diminutive brunette from Quebec? That vixen whipping back her shiny weave, dancing fierce in the club, is this the Gabrielle Civil you've already seen? A specter lingers of what you have in mind. The déjà vu is what precedes and what follows. 3. Things can look like one thing and be something else at the same time. In fact, I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you. What? Yeah. Things can look like one thing and be something else at the same time. Just look at these prayer cards in my hand. You may see Joan of Arc with pale skin striding in silver armor, and also see Ogun Ferrai. You may spy the Black Madonna of Chautauqua with her scratched and gilded face, and recognize Ursulie Dantot. Revel in this simultaneity on full display. The déjà vu dwells in syncretism and enjoys open secrets. 4. There's the surface of things and what we carry under our skin. In the flesh, a Black woman foots the bill. Henrietta Lacks never knew her cells would become the heart of microbiology. From her body, we encounter immortal regeneration. The déjà vu becomes a helix of epigenetics. 5. The déjà vu is living someone else's memory before. Remember when they tried to kick M. Norbezi Philip off the bus in Morocco? You heard about that, right? She had dreamed of the Sahara and seeing desert sand and stars, and even showed up early on the bus for the tour. But then things got hectic, as they do for Black women in the world, and they tried to kick her off from some happy white girls. And 5, I hold my hands, chest high, palms facing outward, as if my body, arms, and hands were all of a piece in my resistance. I was the second person on this bus, I say, and I'm telling you, I'm not getting off. Quote, end quote. 6. Rosa Parks was clearly on that bus first in spirit, if not in body. Later, Philip said she thought of Rosa and Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica and Queen Yasantua of the Ashanti, guiding her hands and planting her feet. Reading Philip's words, I feel them all, Rosa, Nanny, Ya, nor Bessie herself, guiding my own hands and planting my feet. The déjà vu arrives as shared ritual performance. 7. The déjà vu combines personal and historical memory across a dazzling array of forms: rememory, monumental mammy sphinx sculpture, completely of sugar, bittersweet reminder, Black ancestral pain, photograph, unapologetically nude, beautiful, fleshy, brown, white pumps on a box in the middle of Wall Street, Black bodies birthing the capital of the world. The déjà vu embodies art as reclamation. It skirts the fleeting and enduring, the mythic and uncanny. 4. Boo! You all can do that at home with me if you want. Boo! Spooky ripplings of icy waves. This umpteenth time she returns. Wanda Coleman writes as a Black woman ghost in American Sonnet 35. What arrives involuntary? Another gasp, a shiver in the spine. We know it's coming, but still get shook. Our haunting blurs inside and outside ourselves and the surround. There's the surface of things and what we carry under our skin. There is also what exceeds us. What happens when the body is no longer mine, when it's no longer alive? The déjà vu is the Blackness before and after. So that's a little bit from that. The déjà vu is an expanding set of forms. And as you can just hear from a little bit from that title essay, I'm really interested in the list. I'm interested in an accounting. I'm interested in ekphrasis, art writing. I'm interested in personal narrative and poetry. I mean, for me, all of these things are generative possibilities. All of these things are manifestations of Black dreams and Black time. And actually all of these things, for me, come from and foster and feed into the body. So guess what I want to make sure that I do, especially since I get to talk with the one and only Sejal Shah, and Sejal is such a known dancer, and dance is such an important part of Sejal's practice and writing. I thought it could be cool to read a little bit from the Déjà Vu, an essay. Actually, it's like a, what do I want to say? It's a plan for a 10,000 year vision of an art practice called Don't You Feel It Too? And I describe, I guess, that plan, or I entitle that plan in this piece that I call Public Mysteries. So we'll just hear a little bit of that. And I see my sisters in the chat. Say hello in the chat, sister. Call my mom and tell her that she's missing it. Okay. Public Mysteries. Perhaps you've seen us on the side of a road, on top of a bridge or under one, on a rooftop, by a light post, in front of a museum, at the polls, at a protest, remembered inside your dreams, or perhaps it's been you, grooving, swaying, twisting, stretching, provoking, befuddling, insisting, dancing in the streets. Either way, this evidence, this body in space, yours or mine, has mattered for some time, and with good luck, will matter for a long time to come. You know what? There were some good verbs in that. I feel like I want to do something with those verbs here. Wait, and also I'm going to give you this invitation to do them with me, because why not? Nobody can see you except maybe the people in the world where you're with, but they're used to you. So let's go. Perhaps it's been you, grooving, swaying, twisting, stretching, provoking, befuddling, insisting, dancing in the streets. Okay, that's the language. I'm going to do it one more time just so you can ride the wave too. Let's go. Perhaps it's been you, grooving, swaying, twisting, stretching, provoking, befuddling, insisting, dancing in the streets. Either way, this evidence, this body in space, yours or mine, has mattered for some time, and with good luck will matter for a long time to come. This invitation to imagine daunted, enticed, stymied, and exhilarated me at turns. After a year of considering, discussing, working, sharing, and dancing, this is the plan. A time capsule, a living document, a choreography of public mysteries, a love letter to a flourishing public art community. Maybe this is writers and books. A love letter to a flourishing public art community. This is also a score for future dancers. How dare we dance for 1,000 more years? What does it mean to feel it too? Zone. In simplest terms, don't you feel it too is the act of dancing inner lives in public spaces. Maybe some of you just did this. It's a participatory art project and civic intervention. At times, it can feel like a religion, a movement, a dance team, and a consciousness raising group all rolled into one. Here, in this 1,000-year plan, I capitalize the name, but don't italicize the title. This shows a proper noun slipping into and against the flow. This is because Don't You Feel It Too is both an artwork and a way of being in the world, subversive and plain. But I'm getting ahead of myself, a fair hazard when dreaming about the future. The future, time. Don't you feel it too? Practice unfolds in a clear ritual flow. The leader, sometimes Marcus, sometimes Diane or Teresa or Oliver or someone else learning to lead, welcomes us, acknowledges newbies, secures belongings, and checks in. Does everyone have their earbuds? Does anyone need to store any valuables in a car? From the start, we are meant to feel cared for. I just love that. Like, what would it mean in all of our kind of public collective practices if from the start we were meant to feel cared for? Then the leader reminds us of the basic instructions. This language has changed, has morphed over time, as it surely will keep morphing. But for now, it's been whittled down to just these 3 rules. Number 1, love your music. Number 2, move honestly, fearlessly. Number 3, feel what you feel. I'll read those again just because they're so good. These are the rules for Don't You Feel It Too. Once you have your earbuds, once you're ready to dance out in public, number 1, love your music. Pick something that's awesome. Number 2, move honestly, fearlessly. Number 3, feel what you feel. With these words hanging in the air, we put on our headphones, press play, and dance. Now I know you all want to do that now, don't you? Body. When I dance, I stay close to others for a while, watch their bodies peel away, then find myself dancing alone. My body heats up and I can feel my hips sway, the tips of my fingers pressing together and snapping, the band of my knees, my heart rate rising, the flat soles of my feet, the ground beneath the sidewalk, and sometimes, when I'm lucky, my ancestors beneath that ground, strength and connection. Sometimes silliness bubbles up as I wag my fingers, skip and twirl like a little girl, or hop onto a bench, shaking my shoulders. Suddenly, in the middle of an afternoon, the entire city becomes my playground, a straight edge club without darkness or booze or someone nudging forward with an offer of pharmaceuticals. In front of everybody, I get to have this body and space and time in front of everybody. I get to have this body and space and time in front of everybody. I get to have this body in this space and time. In 2017, in 2018, in 2020, in 2021, in 2022, in 2023, in 2025, in 2030, to take up public space is a radical act. Activism, to dance in public as a chubby Black woman, a plump Black woman, a fat Black woman, fat Black performance art, a chubby Black woman, not for money or approbation, is a reclamation. To do this for myself, to do this undaunted by the grace of others, dancing, that's pretty good, dancing. Don't you feel it too? Undaunted by the gaze of others, I reverse marginalization. I am insisting on my presence. I am forging belonging. This is activism for myself, for other people from marginalized group and marginalized bodies. Don't you feel it too? This dance, this movement, this public presence becomes protest and resistance. In front of everybody, I get to have this body and space and time. It's exhilarating and scary too, even though I've done it many times, even though I don't embarrass easily, can't you tell? At the center of my action radiates wonder and awe at my own audacity, along with some trepidation. Am I ridiculous? What does it mean to have this body? What am I feeling? Sometimes joy, but also grief, unleashing the singularity of being inside this particular body, this collective singularity. Thank you so much.
Gabrielle, that was beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks to all of you all who dropped a few things into the chat here. I love these places, the airports that people have been sipping a dirty chai on the corner by the bus station in Ipsy. That's what's up. Look at that, these places. Where are you now, actually, Sejal? Where are you at in the world?
I am right outside Rochester, so I'm back.
So you are also in the same kind of vicinity here as Writers and Books.
Yes, yes. I am just down the street from them. I have so many things to ask you.
Sure. That's my time. It's great. Time, Black Dreams and Black Time. Cool.
You know, this isn't what I was going to start out asking, but because I see that Purvi Shah is in the chat.
In the house.
Woo! And I first heard you read at her book party for her first book, the launch for her first book, Terrain Tracks. I'm interested, one of the things I'm interested in is how your friendships and creative relationships have, you know, influenced how you write, how you work, since that's a long friendship.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that question, because my friendships and creative relationships profoundly influenced my work. I think about Purvi Shah and myself and another friend of ours, Julia Cole, becoming poets together in Marge Piercy's class at the University of Michigan, and developing a practice of reading our new poems and sharing them and giving ourselves prompts and working with them. And it was always this idea of creativity happening in relation and creativity happening in community. So that's really important. And then certainly the way that I started to explore writing in relationship with performance, that became such a project of learning by going to different performance events, by seeing different artists make work, by seeing spoken word, by seeing performance art, by seeing theater, dance, all of these things, and trying to almost like a little bee or butterfly flit from scene to scene and learn in community and in relationship with other people. All of these books also, they are about my coming of age, or they're about sort of my explorations or manifestations in creativity, but they're also snapshots of a scene, snapshots of relationships. And I feel like there are artists who I think should be known better, and I want to talk about them or create these archives. These books are archives that hold creative relationships. That's a big part of what's happening, I think, in my work.
Yeah, I love all the references to people in your life.
Oh, yeah.
When I first heard you interviewed by David Naiman on Between the Covers, which those of you in the audience, if you haven't heard, it's just an amazing interview. But yeah, I was talking to my friend Geeta Kotari about your book. She went out and got it and was raving about it. And then I went out and got it. And I thought, I hadn't seen a book that was like this, that had so many different voices and just the way that it looked on the page. And this is just something I wanted to read that I just enjoyed. This is on page 18 if you have the book. I guess you have the book. But about TV, actually, but this parenthetical voice that you have, and it's every day my father watches reruns of Perry Mason, Leave It to Beaver, The Andy Griffith Show. He clearly enjoys the acting and the storylines, but I think he also likes their reminder of a different time, how they remind him of himself back then. The other day, ER came on, and then autoplay on Hulu is what TV used to be, somebody else deciding what you should watch next. And then just a little bit more about ER. I have seen every episode of ER, parenthetical, and that show aired for 15 years, so that's really saying something. I think I've seen every episode of that show too, and it never occurred to me to write about it.
Well, I think there's a number of things are happening there. Thank you for reading that, because that is from an essay that was very emotional for me, and it felt very vulnerable. In some sense, that was about multiplicity and revision and the number of voices that we might have inside of ourselves. So those parentheses are really about these asides, but that's also another so here I am, I'm writing, and that's one voice, but then there's another little voice that's coming in to that parenthesis. So it's like I'm allowed to have more than one voice. I'm allowed to have multiplicity. And that particular essay is one where I explode the text. So there was something I wrote back in 2006, and then I just take certain lines of it and they become jump off points for these other little meditations on what I'm writing about. And it's really about that kind of measure of what we used to say or what we used to think or how we used to say things and how we do it now. And I'm feeling a lot of cultural pressure in this moment. There's a lot of emphasis on semantics, and there's different sort of fusions and innovations and updates in our language, which are important. And I also feel as if at times that there's a framework or a context of thinking in my own life that I'm afraid is getting lost or misconstrued, or that I'm nervous even for myself that I will completely want to disown because it came from before, and trying to think, well, what would happen if we can hold all of it at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of language, that reminded me of the Dear Reader in the back.
Oh, you know, it's funny. There was a review from Kirkus. I talk about that in the David Naiman interview, and maybe I shouldn't because it was great to have a review from Kirkus. And I think the person who wrote that review thought it was positive. But after this book is like over 300 pages long, don't be scared though. There's a lot of poetry in it. So there's white space, but you know, and that the thing that they wanted to latch onto was that letter where I just talk about my choices around not capitalizing B and Black in the book for most of it. There's a couple of capital B's in certain places, and if someone else has capitalized it, and I don't always not capitalize, but it's about time and the way that I came to learn how to write. This insistence on a capital B is very new. Like, you know, Toni Moore, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I know Sonia Sanchez didn't use capital letters at all, you know, so,
Right.
but how that there's like a policing around that for editors. My editor was another Black woman, and so that was kind of fun. And she said, you know, you're such a wingnut. You should write about it. So good, you know, because I think it's important to be idiosyncratic or to at times to be a little obsolete, I guess, and to say like, well, there are people in our communities that are at different levels and have different ideas. Does it or have different practices? Are they automatically your enemy? Does radicality always look exactly the same? So that was what my letter is about, but I hope it's a lot more humorous, the letter that I write. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the humor in it. And one question I had, and I love this picture of you too.
Oh, that's a little baby.
I mean, photographs. It just, what was it like to work on this with a press? There are so many different pieces. What was it like to decide on an order? What was it like did you share? I'm assuming that you shared work with friends, and then also the design elements.
I want to lift up Coffee House Press because the Déjà Vu is really nuts. I mean, I just did this conversation with Stephanie Jemison that just dropped a couple days ago, and at the end we can drop links to some of the stuff if people are interested. And she was just like, your book has 10 different books in one. And I was like, you're right. I mean,
and fonts.
There's different fonts, there's different design elements. And we had a beautiful designer, incredible editor, production editor. I mean, I just think they let me do it. And I feel like there's images and there's a whole section on Haitian art, and they just let me do it. And part of it is that the whole concept of the book, even when I wrote the proposal for it, I was interested in thinking about maybe exploding the idea of the essay. So for me, this is a book of essays, but maybe an essay is a poem or a series of poems, or maybe an essay is a score for performance, or maybe an essay is a transcription of a
commencement speech.
Maybe an essay is a speech, is a keynote address.
Yeah, keynote.
That's it. Maybe an essay is, you know, so really trying to think through play. There's a lot of play. In terms of it though, I think I pretty much gave the book to them. And so, and I mean, I had a lot of anxiety about it. It was, on the one hand, I was a complete megalomaniac in the sense of like, this is the book. And on the other hand, I was just like, is anyone going to read this? Is anyone going to understand this? So I had a lot of anxiety, and it felt in some ways more vulnerable than other books I've written because it's revealing some of the ways that my thinking is not always in sync with maybe I'm thinking or questioning things that are not always in fashion or in vogue. Yeah, and it's been hard because I don't think necessarily that's why it's so wonderful to have a chance to read from it. I'm not sure how much this book has been taken up or how much people have read it or engaged with it. It feels as if I want it so much to be a part of a conversation around Blackness and reckoning and probably grief and healing in this kind of post-uprising, you know, murder of George Floyd moment. And I feel like this book has not necessarily been as much a part of that as I've wanted to. And also there hasn't been as much of that as I thought there would be. Just felt like we have all gone through something so intense. So I just assumed that in society, maybe we would all, it would move us to a new place. And for 5 minutes, there was a lot of virtue signaling. And then I don't know where we are now, you know?
Yeah, I do. It's disturbing. It's disturbing. I have a question from Wendy Call,
Yes.
who I think got kicked out of Zoom.
Oh no.
Well, it's but because of her internet, not because she did anything.
She got bounced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she got
By the
bounced.
internet, yeah.
So she says, I would love to hear Gabrielle talk more about the wonderful essay Public Mysteries and how it predicted the way we had to interact during the pandemic. Did those events continue into the pandemic?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think the idea of a public dance practice that would involve an individual person going out with headphones and just sort of dancing in space by themselves, it did in some sense predict, I guess, the need for us still to claim joy in the midst of isolation, or to reclaim or rethink our relationship to landscape. That particular practice, as I talk about in the essay, was first conceived as a response to the Republican National Convention coming to Minneapolis in 2008. So it was the idea of trying to break a kind of binary of protest or do something different in physical space to mark a kind of occasion, something that was a little ridiculous, something that had some pleasure, but also something that was insistent on the presence of certain kinds of bodies in space and mobilizing your own inner life in public space as a kind of resistance or activism. I thought that was so amazing. And you know how they use it now. I mean, so definitely during the pandemic, people did, there were Zoom meetups where people did it. And they were also going out masked and distanced and still doing it, because you come together in a collective to meet, go over, and then you just go off on your own, and then you come back at a certain time. And there's a practice at the end for how you close. But one thing that they do, which is really powerful, there's a particular day, I'm pretty sure it might be Good Friday in the Christian calendar, where in St. Paul, Minnesota, there's a big standoff between anti-abortion activists and pro-choice activists right outside of a particular Planned Parenthood clinic, okay, in Minnesota. And it's gotten bigger and more intense and more confrontational over time. And so don't you feel it too, trained and came to try to come up with like some third way of being in that space and trying to dance in and around and between these two protesting camps. And so that's something that they've been doing for some years, which is really intense, actually.
That's amazing. Is it on Good Friday, did you say? Wow.
So it's coming up, yeah.
Speaking of collecting, going away, coming back, I got to see you in part of Translated Bodies performance that you did last week. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that. Also, I guess let me check to see if there are any questions. If there are any questions, please go ahead and stick them in the Q&A, or we're small enough, you could put them in the chat. But
so this is I get to use Zoom to show you all something, which is really exciting. This is the evening. I wanted to especially show these images because I know Sejal wasn't able to come to this part of it, but Translated Bodies was a curated event at the intersection of performance, writing, and translation. And it was specifically connecting myself and three other amazing literary translators, Sawako Nakayasu, also a poet, J.D. Pluker, also a poet, and then Madhu Kaza, a writer, and wonderful kind of, and all of us are teachers. All of us have been involved in performance practices. And so this happened in Seattle at it was through the Velocity Dance Center, and the event took place at 12th Avenue Arts, where Velocity now resides. They used to have their own space, but then during the pandemic, that went away. And so now they're in this other space. But it started actually in a panel at AWP. And one thing we were interested in doing is translate. So this is again about the translation of forms. We were interested in translating the form of a conference panel into something else. So it started as a panel, and you can actually see with an image like this. Let me see if I can if I get into trouble, you can see this still. This might be too much, but yeah, like this is an example. Can you see this all okay still? All right. So you see problems of phrase fragments and line formation, problems of definite and indefinite articles. This is some language that's describing some problems that I had in actual literary translation, but then thinking about that relative as well to translate to the translation of a body or experience, or if you think about translation as a shift from place to place, now you're talking about migration. Now you're talking about immigration or refugee status, so we were interested in thinking about some of those literary questions and then playing them out and performing them and exploring them. And so we had we had the panel on Thursday, an evening of presentation of research, which was showing work in progress or excerpts of work. And then on Friday, there was something called virtual play, where you would get this series of prompts, a little party in your inbox that was encouraging you to sort of translate your experience in writing or movement or performance. But then we came back and we had this more interactive experience on Saturday. And some people had already been to Thursday or had experienced the emails on Friday or had been to the panel, but some people hadn't. And so we had all these different on-ramps into that experience. And so I curated this and sort of was maybe a lead artistic producer in terms of supporting my colleagues, and I also performed myself. And I guess you could see this is an example of what can you still see? Tell me if this is all still. So this is kind of the individual performance I did on Thursday, which took some aspects of my piece, The Déjà Vu Live. So taking some of the language from this book and activating it. So it's funny because some of the stuff in the book started in performance and then became a book and then came back in another way in performance. Some things started as writing and then turned into performance. Some things were remixing performance elements that I'd done in the past. I just love that this is my little foot, Yeah, so this just gives a little bit of a sense of, of my practice.
What are you working on now?
Yeah, I have a feeling I know we're coming to a close. Well, I have a book that's coming out from Texas Review Press. So I'm working on the final kind of in the production process of that, which is about a year and a half or so that I made performance art in Mexico. So the book is called In and Out of Place. It was originally supposed to come out I guess at the end of 2022, and because of supply chain issues, it didn't come out. And then this is all a series of work. I'm at the end of the series now. It's called A Chronicle of Performance Bodies. So all of these books that I'm mentioning, the ones that have come out so far, plus the Mexico book, and there's one more book in the series, and it has to do with Africa and the diaspora. Oh, good, Dan, we have time for one more question. Beautiful. Keep us honest, Dan. I appreciate you.
If we don't have another question coming in, do we? Let's see. No. Gabrielle, how do you deal with the gap, the lag between the performing, the writing, and then the production, like when something actually comes out? That was one of the things that I was surprised about, how long it took to make a book. And then when you're reading from it, when you read, it felt very, as you said, it was activated. It felt present and real. But some of this work must be from a while ago.
For sure. No, I mean, I would say for the Déjà Vu, half of it comes from my archives and the other half was like brand new, right? And that brand new was intense because it was really, the pandemic produced it in the sense that all I did was Zoom teach and then try to walk or jog with a mask on. And then, so I was just in my house. So it was really almost like pressure cooked. But that question of the time of the writer and the time of the reader, or the time when something happens versus the time it takes for you to write about it, and then the time it takes for that writing to actually circulate, that can be really hard. And I just dropped this link in the chat. This is the thing that a conversation that just dropped with myself and a really wonderful artist named Stephanie Jemison. And we talk specifically about this question because I talk about how my heart hurt a little bit with that delay. And actually it's the wonderful Purvi Shah here who said to me, like, Gabrielle, you know what, you need to rest. You've had a lot of books in a short amount of time. it's fine for you to have a little bit more time, because when it arrives, it will still be new. And that's one thing about Black dreams and Black time, or just time in general. If you haven't seen it before, it's new to you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's that time capsule piece. It will still all be new. And so as writers and as artists, we want that work to hit. We want it. Yes, that's from.
From the Déjà vu.
From,
It's right back to you, but right.
Dreams tell us that rest is not passive. And thank you for giving me that message, because I'm always got my hands in 50 different things. It's okay. One of the big questions in the text Wild Beauty here is like, what happens if we take our time?
Yeah.
Taking our time is slowing down, but it's also claiming our time to do the things that we need to do, and to take the time it takes to do the thing, you know? Taking time takes time, so. Yeah.
Taking time takes time. And
so that's the thing, to manage that, what can feel like that anxious process, at least it's anxious for me, of how long it takes. I just have to remind myself that taking time takes time.
And you can get the Déjà vu. There's a link in the chat at ampersand.
Let's support our independent bookstores, y'all.
Let's support our independent bookstores. And Gabrielle, thank you for holding space for so many writers, for me. And this is this book kind of exploded a bunch of things for me. So you should just get it. I'm just telling you all, just get it.
You know what? Get your library to get it. And then
get it however you can.
However you need to get it. And we got it on the audiobook. You can do that. There's an ebook. You can do that. However you want to do it.
Gabrielle, there's an audiobook?
Oh yeah, I read it.
Oh my God, no, I didn't know that.
That's how my mom listened to it, and she said that it opened the whole thing for her, because for some people it can be daunting on the page, but it isn't. If you just hear my voice, it's all good.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you again so much.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, writers.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you, Sejal. That was wonderful. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank our funders. I have a slide here. Buy the book, links in the chat. Buy Sejal's book, that's in the chat as well. And for upcoming events, you can check out our website, wab.org. And thanks again for coming. Have a great night.